I found the photo while clearing out Dad's study to make room for the new extension blueprints. It was tucked inside an old architecture magazine from 1992, yellow and creased at the edges. A beautiful woman with Riley's exact smile stared back at me, her arm wrapped around my father's younger self. On the back, written in faded ink, "We both made our choices." My name is Addison, and I'm the architect who designed the extension that would destroy my family. Though honestly, they were pretty good at destroying themselves long before I got involved. "This is perfect, sweetheart," Mom had said 6 months ago, her manicured fingers trailing over my initial sketches. "Your father and I always knew you'd do something special with the house one day. Make it yours." I should have known better. 23 years of being the family disappointment should have taught me something. But there I was, 33 years old, still desperately chasing their approval like a kid running after bubbles. "The south-facing windows will capture the morning light perfectly," I explained, pointing to the renderings. "And see how the new wing connects to the original structure? It's modern but respectful of the home's history." Dad squeezed my shoulder. "That's my girl, always thinking of everything." I remember how warm his pride felt, how real it seemed. "We want you to have your own space," Mom added, reaching for her ever-present glass of Chardonnay. "You've been so adrift since breaking up with Caden. This could be your fresh start." The mention of Caden stung, but I pushed past it. "I'll need to pull some permits, get contractors lined up. The budget? Whatever it takes," Dad interrupted. "We trust you completely." I called Caden that evening, professional courtesy since his firm handled our family's legal work. "They're actually letting me do this," I said, trying to contain my excitement. "Add me to the project contracts," he replied, his lawyer voice slipping through. "Just in case." "In case of what?" "They're my parents." "Addison." His tone softened. "Just let me help protect you. Please." I should have heard the worry in his voice. Should have remembered how he'd watched them treat me all those years we dated. But hope is a hell of a drug. The next 6 months were a blur of permits, contractors, and careful calculations. I poured everything into that extension. My savings, my time, my desperate need to finally prove myself worthy of the Warner name. Every beam, every angle, every detail was perfect. Riley dropped by the construction site occasionally, usually when she needed money or attention. "This is gonna be amazing," she'd gush, before launching into another crisis only Mom and Dad could solve. "You're so lucky they're letting you do this," she said once, running her hand along a freshly plastered wall. "I mean, after everything—" "After what?" She just smiled that perfect smile, the one from the photograph I'd found, and changed the subject. The extension rose like a dream from the ground up. 2 stories of glass and steel, anchored by warm wood and stone. A home office that would double as my architecture studio. A private deck overlooking the garden. Space to breathe, to create, to finally be myself. "It's absolutely stunning," Eliana said during her final interior design walkthrough. "But are you sure about this? Living so close to them?" "They're different now," I insisted. "They see me differently." She hugged me tight. "I hope you're right, honey." The night before the thank you party they insisted on throwing, I sat alone in what would be my new living room. Moonlight spilled through those perfect south-facing windows, casting long shadows across the floor I'd chosen. Everything felt possible. I pulled out the photo again, studying the woman's face. She had to be from Dad's architecture days, before he met Mom, before he gave up designing for managing other people's money, before Riley became the son their whole world revolved around. We both made our choices. I tucked the photo away and stood up, surrounded by the space I'd created. My choice was believing in them one last time, believing that this time, finally, they'd choose me too. I didn't know then that in less than 24 hours, they'd prove exactly how wrong I was. or that their betrayal would set in motion something none of us could stop. But that's getting ahead of the story. First, let me tell you about the party where everything fell apart. The champagne was flowing, the extension was gleaming, and I was actually starting to believe this moment was real. Guests filled every corner of the new space, admiring the architectural details I'd poured my soul into. Even Mom seemed genuinely proud, showing off the custom built-ins to her country club friends. "Speech time," Dad called out, tapping his glass with a silver spoon. The crowd gathered around, and I felt my cheeks flush. This was it. My moment of validation after all these years. Dad cleared his throat. "First, I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate this beautiful addition to our home. And of course, we must thank our talented architect." He smiled at me, and my heart swelled. My eldest daughter, Addison, who has created something truly spectacular. The guests applauded. I caught Eliana's eye across the room. She was beaming. "But tonight isn't just about celebrating new beginnings," Dad continued. "It's about family, about creating spaces for the next generation to thrive." Something in his tone shifted. I felt it before I understood it. Which is why we're so thrilled to announce that this extension will be the perfect home for Riley and Flynn as they start their life together. The glass nearly slipped from my hand. The room went fuzzy around the edges as applause erupted again. Riley squealed and rushed forward to hug Dad, then Mom. "We couldn't think of a better engagement gift," Mom announced, her voice carrying over the crowd. "Riley and Flynn need the space more than anyone, especially with their plans to start a family soon." I stood frozen as guests congratulated Riley. Flynn appeared beside her, looking as surprised as I felt, but quickly adapting to his good fortune. My extension. My dream. My home. "Addison?" Mom's voice cut through my shock. "Darling, come congratulate your sister." I forced myself forward, muscle memory taking over. Riley threw her arms around me. "Can you believe it?" she whispered. "It's perfect." "Perfect," I echoed, my voice hollow. "Oh, honey," Mom said later, cornering me by the kitchen when she noticed I'd barely spoken for an hour. "Don't be difficult about this. You know it makes more sense for Riley to have the space. You're still so unsettled. Living alone, working those long hours. This way, the extension stays in the family properly." "The family?" I managed. "I am the family. I designed this. I paid for half of it." "Lower your voice," she hissed. "We'll discuss the financial arrangements later." "But really, Addison, this emotional instability is exactly why—" "Everything okay here?" Eliana appeared at my side, her hand steady on my arm. "Fine," Mom said smoothly. "Just explaining some family decisions to Addison. She's having trouble processing change, as usual." I watched her glide away, already calling out to another guest. Eliana squeezed my arm. "What do you need?" "Air," I choked out. We slipped onto the deck, my deck, designed for my morning coffee and evening sketching. Riley's deck now, apparently. "They can't just do this," Eliana said. "The contracts—" "Caden," I interrupted, pulling out my phone. "I need Caden." He answered on the second ring. "What's wrong?" "Remember those clauses you insisted on? The ones I said were unnecessary because they're my parents, and they'd never—" My voice cracked. "They did it, didn't they?" His tone was gentle but unsurprised. "They gave it to Riley. They announced it at the party, in front of everyone. Made me look like the unstable one for thinking—" I couldn't finish. "Listen to me carefully," Caden said. "Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. And whatever you do, don't let them access the construction accounts. I'm coming over first thing tomorrow." "Why? What did you do?" "I protected you. Like I should have done years ago." He paused. "The bank clause is still active, Addison. You hold all the cards. They just don't know it yet." Inside, I could hear Riley's laugh floating through the windows. Mom's voice carrying on about wedding plans. Dad discussing property values with his golf buddies. Addison? Caden's voice brought me back. Are you ready to finally stand up to them? I thought about the woman in the photograph, about choices made and prices paid, about 2 decades of being the family disappointment. Yes, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. I'm ready. I ended the call and turned to Eliana, who was watching me with concern. You're scary when you're quiet like this, she said. Good, I replied, straightening my shoulders. Because I'm done being the quiet one they can push around. Through the windows, I watched my family celebrate stealing my dream. They had no idea what was coming, but they were about to learn that karma has a very, very long memory. The first domino fell at exactly 9:03 a.m. I know because I was watching the clock, sipping my coffee, when Mom's number flashed on my phone. What did you do? She demanded, her voice shrill. The bank just called about the construction loan. They're saying, I stopped the automatic payments, I said calmly. Since I'm not living in the extension anymore, I don't see why I should keep paying for it. But your father and I co-signed based on your income. They're threatening to call in the entire loan. How unfortunate. I took another sip of coffee. Maybe Riley can cover it. The second domino fell 20 minutes later. The specialty window company I'd contracted called my parents about the outstanding balance on the panoramic windows, the ones Mom had bragged about to all her friends. Miss Warner? The contractor said when I answered his call. Your parents tried to authorize payment, but as per our agreement, only you can release the funds. I'm afraid I'll have to cancel the order, I replied. Please proceed with removal at their expense. By noon, Dad was at my apartment door. I watched through the peephole as he shifted from foot to foot, his confident facade cracking. Addison, open up. We need to talk about this reasonably. I turned the lock slowly, letting him hear each click. Reasonably? Like how you reasonably gave away my home without consulting me? He stepped inside, running a hand through his thinning hair. Look, sweetheart, we made a judgment call. Riley and Flynn need... Need what, Dad? My money? My design? My life? You're being dramatic. We can work something out with the payments. Split them differently. No. The word came out sharp enough to make him flinch. I'm done working things out. Done watching Riley get everything while I get the leftovers. That's not fair. We've always... Always what? Loved me? Supported me? I laughed, and it wasn't a nice sound. Tell me, Dad, who paid for Riley's 3 failed business ventures? Who covered up her DUI last year? Who's been cleaning up her messes while I worked my ass off trying to earn your approval? He had the decency to look uncomfortable. The past is exactly why we're here. I pulled out the photograph I'd found, watching his face pale. Want to tell me about her? About the choices you both made? Where did you get that? He reached for it, but I pulled it back. Doesn't matter. What matters is I'm done being the responsible one you take for granted. Done watching you throw everything at Riley while treating me like an afterthought. We never... Get out. He blinked. What? Get out of my apartment? Go home to your perfect daughter. But don't be surprised when things start falling apart. Is that a threat? I smiled, channeling Mom's social event sweetness. Of course not, Daddy. Just an architect pointing out structural weaknesses. After he left, I called Caden. It started, I said. I know. Your father's secretary just called to get copies of all the contracts. He paused. Are you sure about this? They're already calling me unstable, unreasonable, dramatic. Might as well give them a reason. Addison, did you know about the DUI cover-up? He sighed. Yes. Your parents paid off the officer. Riley walked away clean, as usual. Not anymore. I opened my laptop, pulling up the carefully organized folders I'd been compiling. Nothing stays buried forever. By evening, the third domino fell. The interior design firm pulled their custom pieces, citing breach of contract. The smart home system went dark. The landscaping company canceled the garden installation, Riley called, screaming about how I was trying to ruin her life. I let it go to voicemail. Mom texted, "We raised you better than this." I replied, "No, you raised me to be exactly this calculating. Congratulations." Eliana brought dinner and concern. "This feels dark for you," she said, watching me work through emails. "Maybe I'm tired of being the light one." I showed her the growing list of financial discrepancies I'd uncovered. They've been playing games for years. Time they learned someone else knows the rules. And after, when it's all burned down, I thought about the woman in the photo, about choices and consequences, about the weight of family secrets. "Then I'll build something new," I said. "Something honest." My phone buzzed with another angry message from Riley. I deleted it without reading. "You know what the funny thing is?" I told Eliana. "They think this is me being destructive. They don't realize it's me finally constructing boundaries." Outside, the sun set on day one of what I'd come to think of as my renovation project. Not of buildings this time, but of truth. And like any good architect, I had every step planned out. Tomorrow would bring the fourth domino. And with it, the first real crack in Riley's perfect facade. The crack in Riley's perfect world started with a text from Flynn. "We need to talk." I watched through my office window as they argued in the parking lot below. Riley gesturing wildly, Flynn shaking his head. When she tried to grab his arm, he pulled away. "What do you mean you're done?" Riley's voice carried up to where I stood. "You can't just—" "Can't what? Walk away from a lie?" Flynn ran his hands through his hair. "You told me you owned that extension, that it was your investment property we'd build our life on." I never said, "Save it. Your sister's lawyer sent over the ownership documents, along with some interesting bank records." He laughed bitterly. "God, I'm such an idiot. 3 years of believing your stories." Riley's voice turned sweet, cajoling. "Baby, please. We can figure this out. Daddy will—" "Your daddy can't fix everything, Riley. Not anymore." I smiled as he drove away, leaving Riley standing alone in the fading sunlight. Right on schedule. The next morning, contractors arrived to remove the custom lighting fixtures. I'd given them explicit instructions. Take everything that wasn't fully paid for. Riley called 7 times while they worked. I let each call go to voicemail. Then social services showed up. "We've received reports of unauthorized occupancy and potential permit violations," the inspector said, flipping through her paperwork. "The zoning application lists this as a single-family dwelling, but we have complaints about it being used as a rental property." Mom tried smoothing it over with her usual charm. "There must be some mistake. This is simply a family matter." "A family matter involving fraudulent permit applications?" The inspector raised an eyebrow. "That's a serious offense." I watched from my car across the street as they toured the property. Mom's smile grew more strained with each note the inspector made. Riley found me at my office later that afternoon. She looked terrible. Mascara smeared, designer outfit wrinkled. "You're trying to destroy my life," she accused, barging past my secretary. "Funny. I thought that was your specialty." I kept typing, not looking up. "What's that supposed to mean? Remember that car accident when you were 18? The one I got blamed for?" She went very still. "How did you find out you were actually driving?" Amazing what people remember when offered the right motivation. The valet from the country club was very chatty. "That was years ago." "Yes. Years of watching you get away with everything while I paid the price." I finally met her eyes. "How's karma feeling, sis?" "You think you're so perfect," she spat. "So righteous. But you're just jealous because Mom and Dad love me more." I laughed. "Love you? They don't even know you. But they're about to." "What does that mean?" "Check tomorrow's local news. Business section." Her face went pale. "You wouldn't?" "Already did. Those loan applications you forged? The ones Dad covered up? Anonymous tips are fascinating things. She lunged across my desk, scattering papers. "You bitch!" My secretary appeared instantly. "Should I call security?" "No need." I stood calmly. "My sister was just leaving. Weren't you, Riley?" She straightened, trying to gather her dignity. "This isn't over. Actually, it is. But hey, at least you still have Mom and Dad's love, right? I'm sure that'll pay the bills." After she stormed out, Eliana called. "Just saw Riley leave. You okay?" "Better than okay. Did you get the records I asked for?" "Yeah, about that." She hesitated. "There's something else in them. Something about that woman in the photo." My heart skipped. "What?" "She filed a paternity suit against your father in 1993. It was sealed, but what?" "The timing, Addison. It lines up with Riley's birth." I sat down hard, pieces clicking into place. The photo, the choices, the way Dad always gave Riley everything she wanted, like he was making up for something. "Send me everything," I said. That night, I drove past the house. The extension sat dark and half-empty, stripped of its luxuries. Through the windows, I could see Mom and Dad arguing in the kitchen. Riley was nowhere in sight. My phone buzzed with a text from Caden. "News story runs at 6 a.m. Last chance to pull back." I thought about 18 years of taking blame for Riley's mistakes, about the accident that nearly ruined my life while she walked away laughing, about the extension that was supposed to finally make things right. "No," I texted back. "Let it burn." I drove home to my apartment, to the files Eliana had sent, to the truth about Riley's real father waiting to be uncovered. Tomorrow would bring more dominoes, more cracks, more carefully orchestrated chaos. But for tonight, I sat with the satisfaction of watching my sister's perfect world crumble, one precisely calculated piece at a time. "Her name was Margaret Taylor," Eliana said, spreading the old newspaper clippings across my coffee table. "She was an interior designer your father worked with in the early 90s. I picked up a yellowed society page photo. Margaret at some charity gala, radiant in black silk, the same smile as Riley, the same eyes. And she was married to Wilson Taylor." Eliana pointed to another article. "State senator at the time, now running for governor." My hands shook as I read the sealed court documents she'd somehow obtained. The paternity suit was filed 3 months before Riley was born, and disappeared 2 weeks later, along with any record of Margaret in your father's life. Eliana sat back. "Your mom must have known." "Known?" I laughed harshly. "She orchestrated it. Look at the dates. She and Dad got married exactly 1 month after the suit was dropped." Jesus. "Remember that DNA test Riley did a few years ago? The one Mom dismissed as unreliable when Riley started asking questions about her genetic heritage. She's been covering this up for decades." I stood, pacing my living room. All those times Mom called me difficult, unstable, not good enough. She was punishing me for being Dad's actual daughter. Addison. And Dad? He's been overcompensating with Riley out of guilt this whole time. I stopped at the window, staring into the night. No wonder they gave her my extension. They've been giving her everything since before she was born. My phone buzzed. Caden. "You need to see this." He sent a link to a live stream. Wilson Taylor was holding a press conference about his campaign's family values platform. Behind him stood his wife of 40 years, perfect in pearls and political smile. "Margaret reinvented herself," Eliana murmured. "Became the politician's wife instead of the other woman." "We both made our choices," I quoted from the photo's inscription. "What are you going to do?" I opened my laptop, pulling up the folder I'd labeled Nuclear Option. Inside were bank records, court documents, and one DNA test report I'd had run on a strand of Riley's hair, taken from her brush during the house renovation. "The truth always comes out," I said, starting to type. Sometimes it just needs a little help. The next morning I met Caden for coffee. He looked tired, worried. The story about the loan fraud is everywhere, he said. Your parents' phones are exploding. Riley's boss called her in for a meeting. Good. This next part, though. He leaned forward. Exposing Wilson Taylor could have serious blowback. Are you sure? I'm not exposing him, I interrupted. I'm exposing them. The lies, the cover-up, the decades of manipulation. Your mother won't survive this kind of scandal. She should have thought of that before she turned me into the family scapegoat. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. I know what you're doing. Meet me, please. Margaret. Well, Eliana said when I showed her. That's unexpected. We met at a quiet cafe across town. Margaret looked older than her photos, but still elegant, composed, still wearing Riley's smile. How did you find me? I asked. I never lost track of her. Margaret stirred her tea. Riley, my daughter, your sister. Half-sister. Yes. She studied my face. You look like your father did back then, before ambition and compromise changed him. Why did you agree to the cover-up? Wilson was running for state senate. A scandal would have ruined everything we'd built. She sighed. Your mother made a compelling argument, and a generous offer. So you just walked away? I made my choice, like your parents made theirs. She reached for her purse, withdrew an envelope. But I never stopped watching, never stopped caring. Inside were photos, Riley's graduations, dance recitals, all taken from a distance. Why show me these now? Because I recognize that look in your eyes, the one that says you're about to burn everything down. She touched my hand. Just remember, when the flames die out, you still have to live with the ashes. I pulled away. They deserve everything coming to them. Perhaps, but Riley doesn't. Margaret stood. She was just a pawn in their game, like you. She left me sitting there, staring at photos of a life lived in shadows and secrets. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Breaking, gubernatorial candidate's wife. Resigns from campaign, cites personal reasons. I smiled. Seems Margaret had made another choice. That evening, I sent the DNA results to 3 people, Mom, Dad, and Riley. Then I turned off my phone and waited for tomorrow's explosion. Because Margaret was wrong about one thing. Sometimes you have to burn it all down to finally see the truth in the ashes. Mom's breakdown happened in the middle of her favorite restaurant. I chose the location deliberately. She'd humiliated me in public, so it seemed fitting to return the favor. How dare you? She slammed the DNA results on the table, making water glasses jump. Spreading lies about our family. Lies? I took a calm sip of wine. That's rich coming from you, Mom. Or should I call you Madam Fixer? How much did it cost to buy Margaret's silence? Her perfectly maintained facade cracked. You have no idea what I sacrificed. What you sacrificed. I leaned forward. I spent my entire life being punished for being Dad's real daughter, while you pampered your living, breathing reminder of his affair. I gave that girl everything, she hissed. Everything. To keep her close, to maintain control of the situation. Do you know what a scandal would have done to us? To us. Or to your precious social standing. Your father needed this. His career, his reputation. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. For once in your life, tell the truth. She deflated suddenly, aging years before my eyes. Wilson Taylor was going to take her. Margaret was going to tell everyone. I couldn't let that happen. So you bought them off, forced Dad to raise Riley as his own. And look how well it worked. She laughed hysterically, drawing stares. Perfect Riley. Golden child. Living proof that money can buy anything, even family. Mom, but you. Her eyes narrowed. You were always there. watching, judging, looking so much like your father it hurt, reminding me every day that I wasn't enough for him. That's not my fault. No? She grabbed her purse, standing unsteadily. Then whose fault is it that you're destroying everything I built, everything I sacrificed for? You destroyed it yourself. With every lie, every manipulation, every time you made me feel worthless to protect your precious image. She slapped me. The sound echoed through the hushed restaurant. Mrs. Warner. A waiter rushed over. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I touched my stinging cheek as she was escorted out, head held high even in disgrace. My phone buzzed. Eliana. Riley's at the house, she said without preamble. She's not taking it well. I drove there faster than I should have. Smoke was visible from 2 blocks away. Riley stood in the extension's main room, surrounded by broken glass and overturned furniture. In her hand was a burning piece of fabric, the custom curtains I'd designed. Going to stop me? She asked, voice eerily calm. No. I pulled out my phone, started recording. But I am going to document your mental breakdown. For insurance purposes, of course. Insurance? She laughed. You think that matters now? Nothing matters. My whole life is a lie. She dropped the burning curtain onto the hardwood floors I'd selected so carefully. My father isn't my father. My mother isn't even my mother. She's just the woman who bought me. Riley grabbed a vase, hurled it at the wall. And you knew. You let me find out through a fucking DNA report. Like you let me take the blame for that car accident? Or how about when you told Mom I was unstable after Caden and I broke up, right before you tried to date him? That's different. No, it's not. I kept filming as she paced, unraveling. It's all the same pattern. You take, you lie, you destroy, and everyone else cleans up your mess. Shut up. She grabbed another curtain, lit it with her cigarette lighter. Riley, stop. Or what? You'll tell Mommy and Daddy? Newsflash, sis. They're not answering their phones anymore. No one is. The smoke alarm started shrieking. Through the windows, I could see neighbors pointing. Someone on their phone probably calling 911. You want to burn it down? I asked quietly. Go ahead. But remember, I'm the one with the insurance, the contracts, the legal control. All you're doing is giving me more ammunition. She froze, reality finally penetrating her rage. The burning curtain fell from her hands. I called the fire department myself, then sent the video to Caden. Riley sat in the driveway as firefighters contained the small blaze, mascara running down her face. I didn't know who I was before, she whispered when I walked past. Now I don't even have that. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Maybe it's time you figured out who you are without them propping you up, I said, and left her there with the smoke and sirens. Later, Eliana asked if I felt bad about how everything unfolded. No, I replied, watching the video of Riley's breakdown again. Sometimes the truth has to burn before it can set you free. But deep down, I wondered if Margaret had been right about the ashes we'd all have to live with. The video of Riley's breakdown went viral within hours. Local news picked it up first, then national outlets caught wind of the political connection. Gubernatorial candidate's secret daughter. Sets fire to family home, made headlines everywhere. I watched it all unfold from my office, where I'd been fielding calls from reporters all morning. No comment, I repeated for the dozenth time, hanging up on another journalist. Caden appeared in my doorway. Your father's here. Dad looked older than I'd ever seen him, shoulders slumped under his expensive suit. Can we talk? I gestured to the chair across from my desk. He sat heavily, pulling out a familiar photograph. I loved her, he said, staring at Margaret's image. But I was a coward. Tell me something I don't know. Your mother. She orchestrated everything. The payoff, the cover-up. Said it would destroy all our lives if the truth came out. He rubbed his face. I let her convince me it was better this way. Better for who? Riley? Me? I thought I could make it up to both of you. Give Riley everything to compensate for denying her real father. Give you nothing, I supplied. Criticism? Constant disappointment? I couldn't look at you without feeling guilty, he admitted. You were so much like me, the real me, before I sold out. Every time you stood your ground, fought for what you believed in, it reminded me of everything I gave up. So you punished me for having the spine you lost? He flinched. I deserve that. You deserve worse. I pulled up the latest news coverage on my computer, turned it toward him. Look what your lies did to Riley. To all of us. The screen showed Riley being escorted from her office, box of belongings in hand. Another clip played of Mom rushing into their house, hiding from cameras. Wilson Taylor's withdrawing from the governor's race, Dad said quietly. Margaret's gone public with everything. Good. The bank's foreclosing on the house. Your mother's had to resign from all her charity boards. He met my eyes. Is this what you wanted? Total destruction? No, I replied. I wanted the truth. The destruction? That's just karma finally catching up. And what about Riley? What about her? She's your sister. Half-sister. He corrected when I started to object. But still family. Family? I laughed. You all made it very clear I was never really family. Just the architect of your perfect facade. My phone buzzed. Eliana sending a news alert. Riley had just done a live interview, breaking down on camera as she admitted to years of covered-up incidents, including the car accident she'd blamed on me. At least she's finally being honest, I said. Dad stood slowly. I know it's too late, but I am sorry, Addison. For everything. You're right, I replied. It is too late. After he left, Caden brought me coffee and concern. Your mom's been admitted to the hospital. Anxiety attack. Not my problem. Isn't it? All of this? He gestured at my wall of news coverage. When does it end? When they've lost everything they took from me. And then what? What's left to build on? I didn't have an answer for him. The bank officially repossessed the house the next week. I bought it through a blind trust, just to twist the knife a little deeper. Dad retreated to a condo across town. Mom checked herself into a private facility for exhaustion. Riley disappeared completely, though rumors said she'd gone to find Margaret. I stood in the empty extension, running my hand along the fire-damaged walls. Everything I'd created, destroyed. Everything they'd hidden, exposed. My phone rang. An unknown number. Hello? Is this Addison? A familiar voice. It's Margaret. My throat tightened. How did you get my number? Riley's here with me. A pause. She'd like to talk if you're willing. Why should I? Because she's not the only one who needs to heal. Margaret's voice softened. And because sometimes the hardest part of revenge is knowing when to stop. I looked around the burnt shell of my dreams, at the evidence of my perfectly executed destruction. I'll think about it, I said, and hung up. Later, I sat in my apartment reviewing the damage reports. Property destroyed, reputations ruined, family secrets spilled across national headlines. Everything I'd wanted, everything I'd planned. So why did victory feel so hollow? My phone lit up with a text from Riley. I understand now. Why you did it. Why you had to. I'm sorry it took losing everything to see the truth. I stared at her words for a long time, thinking about Margaret's advice, about karma and consequences, about the cost of being right. Finally, I typed back, me too. It wasn't forgiveness, but maybe it was a start. The letter arrived on a crisp autumn morning, just as I was finalizing plans for my new architectural firm. Riley's handwriting, still perfect despite everything. Dear Addison, I'm not writing to ask forgiveness, or to make excuses. I'm writing because after months of therapy with Margaret, I finally understand what it means to live honestly. You were right about everything. The car accident, the manipulation, the way I let them turn you into the family scapegoat while I basked in their toxic love. I was awful, and I'm not asking you to forget that, but I am asking you to know that I see it now. All of it. The damage we did, the person I became because of their lies, the sister I lost because I was too selfish to be one. Margaret's helping me build something real for the first time in my life. No shortcuts, no lies, just hard work and truth. Maybe someday you can show me how to do that too. Riley P.S. I kept the photo of Margaret and Dad. Seemed right that I should finally have something honest from my real father. I folded the letter carefully, tucking it into my desk drawer. Through my office window, I could see Caden crossing the street, coffee cups in hand. "You're here early," I said when he entered. "Big day." He set a cup in front of me. "The contractor needs final approval on the community center designs." I smiled, spreading out the blueprints we'd been working on together. A project born from the ashes of revenge, turning the family home into a space for healing, for second chances. "Did you see the news?" Caden asked carefully. "Your mom's being released today." "I know. Dad called yesterday, asking if I'd visit her. Will you?" I traced the clean lines of my latest design. I told him I'd think about it, but I'm not ready for their version of family anymore. "And what version are you ready for?" Before I could answer, Eliana burst in. "Sorry I'm late, but wait until you see these interior concepts for the center's therapy rooms." She spread her sketches across my blueprints, and suddenly I was surrounded by the people who'd stood by me through everything. No conditions, no manipulation, just support. "This is the version I'm ready for," I told Caden, watching him smile. My phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. "Riley's first design project got approved. Thought you'd want to know." I stared at the message, remembering the girl who'd once taken everything from me, who was now building something of her own, the hard way. "You okay?" Eliana asked. "Yeah." I picked up my coffee. "Just thinking about how karma works both ways. Sometimes it destroys. Sometimes it rebuilds." Speaking of rebuilding, Caden pulled out a folder. "The Community Center Board loved your idea about the mentorship program for young architects." "They should," Eliana chimed in. "It's brilliant. Taking something broken and turning it into something that helps others heal. That's pure you, Addison." My phone buzzed again. Riley. "Starting my first solo project next week. Scared, but doing it anyway. Learned that from you." I thought about responding, but some bridges need time before they're ready to be crossed. Instead, I turned to my blueprints, to my chosen family, to the future I was building on my own terms. "Let's get to work," I said, picking up my pen. "We've got something important to build." Eliana squeezed my shoulder. Caden's hand found mine under the table. Outside, autumn sunlight streamed through my office windows, illuminating the fresh pages before me. This was my revenge. Not the destruction of my old family, but the construction of something stronger, something real. I opened my drawer one last time, looking at Riley's letter. Then I closed it firmly and turned to my designs. Some people spend their lives seeking approval. Others spend their lives taking revenge. But I'd finally learned the truth. The real power comes from building something that needs no approval but your own. "Ready?" Caden asked, watching me sketch the first line of our new project. I thought about Mom in her private facility, Dad in his empty condo, Riley finding her way with Margaret, about karma and choices and the foundations we choose to build on. "Ready," I replied and meant it, because sometimes the best revenge isn't about burning bridges or settling scores. Sometimes it's about building something so beautiful, so honest, that the people who hurt you have to live with knowing they'll never be part of it. And that's a foundation I could build on,